Thank you. I'm going to tell you about, if my slides come up, working on the factory floor. And low-cost labor models have sort of run their course. In Chinese electronics manufacturers, a well-run one will have labor turnover of 16% per month. So recruiting and retention is an incredible problem in China. Now, that's due to the demographics changing so rapidly in China. Very hard to find and retain skilled laborers in the US. A highly skilled manufacturing worker in a factory, average age is now 56 and going up. Here in Germany, companies like BMW and others have programs to keep their elderly workers on the line longer because they can't be replaced. And the other thing is, lots of companies want to have agility, short runs, change the product mix, not have it sitting on containers going halfway around the world for 4 or 5 months, but manufacturing very close to where things happen. So as a robotics guy, my whole life I've been a robotics guy. How can robots help that? But this is what, as you all know, robots look like in most manufacturing that uses robots, which is less than 10% of all manufacturing. This is in an auto body shop. And the key thing here is there are no people. There are only robots. So up until recently, if you wanted to use robots, you have to get rid of all the people and then make the robots do the task perfectly, which is very difficult. Industrial robots have been in cages. They've been expensive, large footprint, fixed in what they do. You get them set up. You get consultants in. You get consultants connecting up the PLCs, building physical monuments, connecting everything together. And it takes a long time to adapt robots into a particular task, and it has to be high volume for payback. Recently, we've had collaborative robots that are safer, rapid return on investment, small footprint, and flexible. And intelligent collaborative robots have compliant arms, so they're safe to be with. They have multiple degrees of freedom, so they can reach in places that a person could reach in. They come with lots of sensors, embedded vision, and critically, they're easily trained to do tasks. And so, did I go backwards there? Okay, something got out of order. So here's a robot from my company just to show you the scale. This was designed for Chinese electronics manufacturing. Here she's moving it around, and the key point here is it's easy for a person to interact with. She's not teaching a path. This is just how she moves it around in order to show it various things in the workspace in order to train it. And, a ordinary factory worker can, who here has one of these? No one has one of these? A phone? Smartphone? Who took a course on how to use this smartphone? You didn't take a course. It taught you how to use it. It brought you along with a user experience, user interaction. That's very different. Today's factory worker is at home with one of these. They go into the factory, and the equipment is like a dial telephone. That's the walk back in time that they're going back to, or it's a very sophisticated machine they need training for. So trying to make it so that the factory workers can interact with these machines and use the sensibilities of consumer electronics, that the machine is easy to use and trains you how to use it as you use it, is important. And then the robots can not replace people, but just be one of a team doing very simple tasks, because today's robots are not dexterous at all. And the people are doing the more dexterous tasks. But more importantly, that it's easy to use these robots. So this is a small manufacturer in the US. They've got one of our early robots. They have it doing 32 different tasks around the factory, which means they have to redeploy it. So they roll it up. It looks at some fiducials to get the local coordinate system. Things in a small factory move around. It doesn't have memorized trajectories. It has memorized task steps. This is the old version of the software where this is just one of the factory workers who's learned how to retask the robot. It sees the different coordinate systems. Once it's done that, it does everything else and goes back and forth doing its simple task. In later versions of the software that come out this year, the worker won't even have to say, go and look for the fiducials. It'll just find markers, text on the things that are already there, see it with its head camera, adapt, and be instantly usable. So here the key idea here is for digitalization for me is about making tools that are easier for the workers to use in factories so that they can reap the benefits of digitalization. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rodney. And we see that the way we work changes actually really as well on the shop floor. That's not the only space, and I'm really pleased to welcome Catharina van Delden. Catharina is the co-founder and chief executive officer of Innosabi. And Catharina, what are you looking at on the way we work? Welcome on stage.
Thank you so much. Please picture in your head the typical engineer that you think about when you think about how new products and services are created. Probably, most of you have a picture in mind of a creative genius kind of behind thick walls. Nobody is allowed to access that knowledge, that team that's working on new products and services, because there's a high level of secrecy attached to that picture. So now I kind of want you to erase that picture, because in times of digitalization, our innovation processes, the processes of how new products and services are created in large companies, have to change as well. Not only the products and services that are created are becoming more digital, but especially the way we used to get there has to become digital. That means we have to take principles that we know from software development, especially agile software development, and apply those principles to the classical innovation process that we know in large companies. That means applying principles, especially like openness, transparency, and especially collaboration into innovation processes. Collaboration with external parties that were formerly not a part of the innovation process, meaning customers, suppliers, university partners, or even users of the product that you don't have any connection with, people that you wouldn't know have knowledge that's relevant to your innovation process. And that is the case because innovation processes have to become quicker. Companies, and I'm sorry to say that on your panel, but companies don't have the time anymore to have consultants do month-long research, or to do market research for their new products for 6 months, but and the startups are bringing new products in that time frame, while the large companies have maybe conducted their market research. So that means we have to completely change the way we think about how new products and services are created. Innosabi, our company, I'm the founder of the company, has developed a platform that enables to bring these principles into corporate innovation processes. Meaning, we bring together everybody in the company, not just the innovation team, not just the R&D team. We bring together everybody in the company and also the surrounding ecosystems of customers, suppliers, technology partners, universities onto one central digital platform and help them to come to decisions together, which products to drive forward, which ideas to drive forward, and how to actually execute them. For that, of course, you have to have not only collaboration tools, but you especially have to have intelligent algorithms and analytics, because just a huge amount of discussion, content, and data is not going to help. You have to come to decisions. You have to come to decisions that make more sense than if you had come to those decisions with less people. So the kind of overall keyword we are talking about here is the intelligence of the crowd, bringing together many people to come to informed decisions. Everything that I've been talking about was kind of high level, so I want to bring it back to to the shop floor, basically, to what companies are actually doing with it. And I brought 3 examples for you. Postbank has established the Postbank Ideenlabor, basically the Idea Lab, where they discuss all of the new developments with their customers and a large community of non-customers as well. And I think that is especially interesting, opening your R&D and innovation efforts to people that don't have any connection to your company. And they're doing it because not only do they want to increase their speed of innovation and they increase the speed with which they make decisions, but they also want to create products that are very close to the customer need. They want to kind of position themselves as a very transparent and open company. In the innovation pilot, the airport in Munich is taking that principle even one step further. They're creating kind of an onion of a community surrounding itself, starting with their own employees. The next one are the pilots. After that are coming the airlines and suppliers of the airport that are all working together on new innovation projects for the airport in Munich. And lastly, Ice.de, I'm not asking who knows them, they're an erotic online shop. I've just brought it to show you that this principle actually is true across all industries. And if I say all industries, I actually mean it. That's why I brought this example for you of the new love toy created by Facebook fans. So what I'm saying is the way we work is changing, especially in innovation processes. You know, innovation is not just the core task of innovation managers and R&D managers anymore. It's the task of the whole company, of the whole ecosystem. And in order to be successful with that, we need a new type of innovation infrastructure, having one central data space and technology for idea management, technology scouting, partner management, in order to be able to kind of run intelligent analytics on top of that and to be more successful in our digital world.
Catharina, thanks a lot. You do really interesting stuff.
Thanks.
And yes, the big players recognize there needs to be a new speed in their business. And I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Christian Illek. Christian, we know each other. You're actually a really digital pro. You're a member of the board of Deutsche Telekom for HR. And basically your job is to change your people. Looking forward for your introduction statement. Welcome on stage.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. What I like to talk about is actually the concept of ambidexterity. But let me just start with a little introduction. I think digitization will create a leapfrog change across all industries. But fortunately or unfortunately, we in telco are affected the earliest and affected the most. And the impact is actually happening on two dimensions. One is literally every process in the telco industry can be digitized. We're doing this right now with our network. It relates to go-to-market activities. It relates to many transactional services. So there's a lot of automation potential, but also innovation potential in there. The second impact is, unfortunately, our revenue model is getting cannibalized by players like Google, like WhatsApp, as we discussed earlier on. So we have to find a new muscle for growth. So this is the twofold impact which we're seeing right now. And just to illustrate what is the impact of the cannibalization, if you just take a look at the messaging business, WhatsApp has destroyed a double-digit billion profit pool in SMS across the world by introducing their messaging app. So we're not talking about nitty-gritty impacts, we're talking about massive impacts. So the key question is, if we're impacted in this direction, how do we orchestrate this innovation, automation process within that legacy infrastructure? Because we have to transform out of our core. And I want to basically introduce this concept, which we call ambidexterity. You have two types of business in our environment. The first one is what we call the exploitation business. This is the blue part. So it's very much focused on efficiency. It's rules-based. It's waterfall planning. It's very precise. It's risk-averse. This is our dominant hand within Deutsche Telekom. And I would sense in many industries this is our dominant hand. At the same time, you have the exploration business. And the exploration business is kind of dealing with failures. It's kind of messy because failures built into that system because it's dealing with new creative ideas. So the key question is, how do you organize an organizational environment which is effectively working in both worlds? The easy answer is you separate it out. And I think this is exactly what Google has done with Alphabet. They separated out the search business from the Google X business because they're working in different environments and different business systems. But if you transfer your core, you can't do that. Let me give you one example. If you take a look at our CTO, he's running a network rollout that's purely blue, and you better be right the first time. But if he's dealing with the new mobile technology, 5G, there is no standard being defined. It's a purely green environment. And what we have to orchestrate in our company is actually how to mix up green and blue and how to basically develop what we call ambidextrous leaders. Because the green environment is dealing with different talents, different organizational structures, different organizational processes, vis-a-vis the blue environment. And I think that is the key challenge for any kind of legacy industry, to integrate digitization into their core processes and to kind of mix up the green and the blue. And this is, I think, the key challenge for Deutsche Telekom. This is what we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Christian. We'll come back to that later, because we heard this morning, culture eats strategy for lunch, but you're not dealing with one culture, you suddenly start dealing with several cultures. So I'm looking forward for that discussion in our panel. As the next guest, I'd like to introduce Kate Johnson. Kate is the Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer for GE Digital, and they are a big company, very established company. Kate, really looking forward to actually your perspectives on how GE is picking up that challenge. Welcome on stage.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So what Christian said about the ambidextrous leader and the ambidextrous worker couldn't be more true for our company. I think we all know that software is changing the world. Having a little technical issue here with the slide. I'll tell you a story. So software is changing the world. We've got Uber and Apple and Airbnb basically creating brand new business models without actually owning the assets upon which they're creating their value. Okay? Completely new set of careers around these businesses, completely new value streams. Everything is different, and it's all about business models and digital. And our opportunity at GE is quite similar, though we're dealing with that sort of bimodal world that Christian just described, where we have this massive industrial business. And we, like many other businesses over the past several decades, probably didn't get what we needed from a productivity perspective out of technology. We kind of missed the wave. And actually, most industrials, their productivity has declined over time, where the consumer and the enterprise space, technology, software has dramatically improved productivity. So that's our opportunity. And we think about it from the perspective of, imagine a fully connected world, 50 billion machines coming online by 2020. We have all the physics and analytics around how these machines should operate, because we make most of them. And then if you get mastery around big data analytics, you can actually drive insights to how to maximize productivity impact. That's our space. We're attacking the market in 3 different ways. There we go. The first is we started 5 years ago about thinking of our own company, right? And of using big data and analytics to take cost out of our service franchise and frankly to add value for customers. Really simple use cases like recognizing that a jet engine that flies through a hot, harsh climate is likely to have more wear and tear than one that flies through cool climates with less particulates. But how do you prove that? Because the impact of the analysis is life or death. Are you taking parts out of the sky to fix them on the right level of periodicity? That's a life or death decision. And so the analytics have to be absolutely spot on. Well, we've gotten mastery around that, and now we're bringing that value out to our customers. The same kinds of things that we're able to do for our own industrial company to drive productivity, take cost out, and provide more value to customers, we're now making available to customers by offering them digital capabilities and change management capabilities to help their workforce with the same changes that we're going through. And it's not just industrial companies that we can bring this value to. Frankly, it's all adjacent markets where they have devices that are coming online. It's a much bigger opportunity than one might think. And we break down the transformation that our own company is going through into pieces, because it's a way that our brains can think about it. The first is the physics and the analytical that I just talked about. The second is these brilliant machines. We're trying to weave what we call a digital thread through our company. So from design through manufacturing, building, and operating these machines, digital plays a huge role. Building brilliant machines is different than building a machine that's not brilliant throughout the entire life cycle. And the feedback loop of how that machine performs, connected back to the original design process, is where the value is. So we're making that 360-degree connection. Industrial data, we get 50 billion data points off of an aircraft over the course of a year. That's industrial strength data. And as with many companies, we're probably not using all of it. Well, we're building the capabilities so that we can use it. We can figure out what to discard, what to keep to drive more and more insights. The whole big data piece of it is a massive piece of this puzzle. And then there's the people at work concept. There's making ambidextrous leaders, but there's also helping everybody understand that job loss in one place doesn't necessarily mean net job loss at the company or frankly in the industry. All of what we're doing in digital is really about innovation and creating new markets and new opportunities and new career paths. And what pulls it all together for us is the platform. So the Predix platform is what we have created in GE Digital to take the machines and the people, minds and machines together, creating new value. It's generating an enormous number of jobs within our own company, and now we're driving new markets, into the companies, our customers, so that they have the same kinds of opportunities that we have. So that's how we're thinking about it, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the discussion, Frank.
Thanks a lot, Kate. So, Eric, welcome on stage. Eric Weber is the Chief Executive Officer and the co-founder of SpinLab. That's the HHL Accelerator we had from Professor Pinkwart, an introduction last night for those who had the opportunity to attend about HHL, and you are the accelerator on that. Eric, what's your view on how work will change for us?
Yeah.
Here's a clicker.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here, and thanks for the Ambassador Emerson for the free advertisement in the beginning of this evening. And you may have heard in his presentation, or maybe yesterday from Professor Pinkwart, that digitization is something which is really crucial, but somehow also linked to startups. And our idea is to bring together startups and established companies in one creative atmosphere. So this is a picture of our factory. It has been a factory before. As you may have heard of, we are a kind of joint venture between HHL, the famous business school here in Leipzig, which is pretty focusing on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial themes, and with a lot of success stories in the past. So you may have heard of Trivago or Mr. Specs and others. And from this side, we have the network and we have the know-how. From the other side, from Spinnerei, we have the creative atmosphere and the infrastructure. So we bring together those two things to build something which is really relevant in the startup scene. What we offer here, I don't want to go through the slide completely, but what we offer here is the basic concept of consultancy. We can provide additional services and advice for startups where we can also bring in a lot of mentors. I've seen a lot of our mentors here in the audience already, and we can bring these guys together with young and unexperienced entrepreneurs, or even some serial entrepreneurs who might get additional knowledge through them. By that, we can offer a huge network. So we have a big network of corporates, of investors, of experienced entrepreneurs, and this is something which is really crucial for startups in the very early stages. We provide the infrastructure and the technology for them, and of course, we bring them together with investors from all over Germany, including some international investors. So I want to address one very important thing here. So I think the communication will be mainly digital, and we will have support by intelligent bots in the future. So this is one example. So this is a real example. This is a screenshot of a communication channel we use in SpinLab. So this allows, it's called Slack, you may have heard of, because Microsoft wanted to buy it for, I think, roughly 4 billion, but they neglected. So this is something where you can see we use it to communicate with the startups. The startups can communicate with each other, including the alumni teams and the current teams. And we have bots who communicate through this communication channel as well. For example, here a Google bot who just reminds us on different calendar items and things like that. We even have startups who get messages automatically from their platform if they get new customers. So each time they get a customer, they get a push-up message on Slack, including on their smartphone, and that's how it works. So we don't need only human communication, but we need to integrate artificial communication as well. Question I often get is how do you finance it? So it's of course through partnerships with companies, but the main thing here is it's not only the support by Postbank or KPMG or Porsche or others, it's also bringing them together with startups they might be interested in, both as from a financial perspective as investors or strategic investors, but also as users of new technologies. So the basic idea is you don't need, or actually you don't need to be a big tanker, but you have to be a speedboat as well. You need to implement speedboats as well in your infrastructure, and this sometimes means you have to get people out of the normal hierarchy and provide them with a creative atmosphere, with more openness, with more flexibility, where they can really speed up and accelerate. So we also build a platform for that by cooperating with the partners I mentioned before. And a third thing, so these are the startups we supported right now. So in total, there are 19 startups. By the way, only 2 of them from HHL, but all the others from all around Germany. So it's a quite open network, and we need this kind of collaboration, of course. The achievements here are also quite well for something which is only 1 year old. But the thing here is that we also have a lot of startups who deal with data. And digitalization, of course, is connected to data. And I have the strong idea that, of course, if we accept that machines can support us, and of course they do, because we can see it in industry already, we need to accept that we need to provide data. And this can, of course, have some issues with fraud or misuse, but we need to be trustful, we need to regulate it, that we can just use this data in a positive way as well. Thanks.
All right. Please take a seat, Eric. You want to take a seat here? What an amazing set of perspectives. You know, we saw the way we work will change at the shop floor, in the innovation labs, and the R&D labs. Complete big companies where the business model is being attacked need to rethink what they will do in the future. And you have probably one of the largest installed asset bases, all going digital, and you create a space where some of the thinking can emerge. You know, what a great panel for the discussion. Rodney, let me start with you. I liked your movie, you know, where the lady kind of moved the robot and trained the robot how to work, and that seems so easy. What is the future of that? When I will be a factory worker tomorrow, will the robot say, Frank, you don't feel very well? You know, you should go for a coffee. What's coming? What new technologies do you envision in your company?
Yeah, well, I'll go in 2 different directions. One, right now, this is a new idea of having robots and people close together. And the safety regulations are moving very slowly. So we can only have small machines with people working closely together, because we have to have sort of passive regulations where the actual force that the robot can apply is so low that it can't hurt someone. And if we want to have larger machines, we still have to have them separated spatially. I think with all the technology that's being driven by the gaming industry, which has very low-cost things, understand how a person is moving, we're going to, over time, let people and bigger machines work more closely together. That's going to be a real difficult thing, especially for European regulations.
Do you think it's like working is like gaming all day long?
No, I mean the technology that senses people is changing the way that we can have the interaction. So I think we're going to have many more machines working closely with people, which I think the biggest market for robots and people together, by the way, is elder care, because of the changing demographics. That's where it's going to go. There's that level. The other thing that's going to happen is that all these machines, just as we see things going into the home, which are not top-down in the way Industry 4.0 is, I think we'll see a bottom-up Industry 4.0, which is a little different from many of the reports that are being written, thinking about how first you install everything, then you have the cloud, then you have the analytics. How do you get value out of a little tiny implementation first? Because that's what all these SMEs are going to need. They're going to need value out of a very small dipping their toe into the water. And that will slowly over time mean that all the machines that everyone works with on the factory floor are connected to the cloud. But it's not going to happen in a big bang. It's going to trickle up.
Actually, that's an interesting thought we should hold, because what you're saying, and we get the same, Industry 4.0 is so expensive if you do it for the whole company. What you're saying is you start with one worker, one robot at the time, and then you just take it from there. That's interesting, because, you know, we in Germany, we like to engineer everything to perfection. Kate, in your presentation, you had it really well laid out. You talked about the physical world, well, your physical world in there because it's installed, the analytics adding to it. You talked about brilliant machines, I like that. In industrial strength data, and then the people and the work. And I had the privilege to be in San Ramon in your really actually innovation center, and I saw a lot of people at GE thinking through the future of the human-machine interaction, you know, because that seems to be something particular which will drive productivity and probably better work experience. So what's your view on especially the future of the way the work changes in the industrial environment, and in particular with respect to connected machines and advanced manufacturing?
Yeah, so without a doubt, everything's becoming digital, but you have to kind of break the problem down. And we think about, as I said, the digital thread, which is really starting at the design of the products all the way through, building, manufacturing them, operating and servicing them. And, probably while every piece of that puzzle is undergoing digitalization, the most impactful is probably right now on the manufacturing floor, right? With 3D printing and advanced manufacturing technologies.
So it's a huge transformation, actually.
It's an absolutely gigantic transformation in a lot of positive ways. Very disruptive to the way we work in the individuals, but just absolutely hugely impactful. And 3D printing in particular does some amazing things for our company's value proposition and the value that we provide to our customers. It digitizes everything for starters, which is about efficiency and speed, but it also democratizes and distributes. So whereas manufacturing companies used to have an advantage if they had massive scale, right, and everything was centralized, now 3D printing, it's so small and it's low cost, you can kind of make the product anywhere you want.
And that will change the work.
Which changes the onshore-offshore mix. It changes pretty much everything. But it's great for the customer, because now the customer can get what they want, in the shape, size, color that they want it in a very quick fashion. So the speed, to value kind of goes through the roof. So it's really a massive impact on 3 different levels.
Do you as well do research on how to give the worker a better, more enjoyable experience, so he basically just enjoys the work much more through digital capabilities?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so in the beginning, 3D printing, when we bring it to a shop floor, there's hesitation. This is disruption. These are humans, right? So their actual tasks are changing. And but over time, you provide the training, you're upskilling, and you're bringing them to a place where you're introducing safety. I mean, I absolutely loved your video with the human and the machine interacting together in a way where you're not going to get your finger chopped off, right? I mean, that's very significant advancements in the technology. But also, you're having the robot do literally the heavy lifting, and the human is still telling the robot what to do and driving what kind of automation there is and innovating the automation.
I think what you're saying, and that is actually, it's coming down the alley on the for the manufacturing industries, and that means we have to probably all around the world think through. And Eric, you talked about the new environment. You create a new space, which is nice to work at. New collaboration, but you as well create an infrastructure. Where the people are, I wouldn't say forced, but they are enabled to work differently. You know, you talked about the bots, which give you, for standard tasks, you don't have to ask the secretary anymore. You know, just the computer will give you the right answer. You need it quick, you need it instant, you have it at your own fingertips. Are you promoting or developing startups in that space, which have the chance to change industry?
Yeah. Yeah, of course, we have a lot of startups here in Leipzig, not only in SpinLab, but in Leipzig as a whole town. So we are not the only player here, which is, of course, important to create a lovely environment itself in a city. So we have a lot of startups who support these digitalization processes. And I see two different types of startups. So there are startups who support the digital work itself. For example, we have one successful startup here. It's called Wislo. They have an online platform where you can just create business graphics in seconds, which are very professional, and then you can just drag and drop them to PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever. So, and the basic idea is that you can store the information how your corporate design looks like. For example, if we take GE or if we take Deutsche Telekom, we can say these are the colors of Deutsche Telekom, these are the forms and so on, and they directly apply it to the graphics. So this is one example where you can just save a lot of time, but where you can also, as a corporation, make sure that everybody uses your corporate design. And there are a lot of other examples here. Another example is maybe Rabo. It's a company which can actually be used for predictive maintenance of your robots or the robots Siemens uses.
So what you're saying is actually there's opportunity for startups to position and to play in this transformation, which is actually cool because I think we need many of them. And it's good to have actually accelerators all around, which leads me to Christian. Christian, I liked you kind of going at a very strategic level. You are a huge organization, and I think you're running actually 4 or 5 business models in parallel, and you need to master the new with 5G. You have the UTMS, you have the old telephonies, and you probably have huge workforces to keep each of the systems in parallel. And then you say, and then some of the digital players come along and bite into the revenue streams as you go. How do you do that? As a board member for HR, how do you organize? I think it's 300,000 plus people to
230.
230, sorry, 230,000 people to really change all at the same time on these 2 axes you talked about.
Look, first, we don't know the outcome. We know the direction, but we don't have resolved the formula yet. I think the challenge is threefold. One is, on this green area I was talking about, on the innovative area, we have to become attractive as an employer. And we're competing with lots of other companies like Google, as we heard this morning, and these are scarce resources. So we need to get a significant inflow of those green type of people into the organization. The second one is, although macroeconomically it's not clear what the digitization will bring, for us as an industry it's clear. The net is negative. So we will take out a huge amount of people out of our processes, a huge amount of people. So you have to manage that cultural change, make yourself redundant. And obviously, the organization is kind of counter-reacting to it. So, no, I want to prevent the status quo because the status quo is actually preserving my job. That's the second challenge. And the third one is kind of the spin-in process of green into blue. So how do you bring in the innovation into the classic network planning and network deployment organization? Because they're completely different types of people. And I think what we have to establish as a company is that there's no first and second grade citizen in an organization, that everyone has its value and bringing different capabilities to bear. But the spin-in process is going to be the most critical part to bring the innovation into the core mainstream process of Deutsche Telekom. And I think it requires a lot. It's not an HR activity. It's a complete company activity. And I think you have to work on this awareness, how to manage these different streams.
How do you go about the training of the big masses?
Look, it is interesting. We are very much heavily based in Germany, and for years it was impossible to talk about a skill database which is narrow sharp on the individual. Social partner disagreed with that approach at length, and now they're opening up. They want to have a skill database for every employee because we have to target the qualification on an employee level, not on a peanut buttering approach that everyone is getting kind of the same training. So I think the social partner has to be brought along. That's a critical part, especially if you have these kind of Mitbestimmung like we have it in Germany. And I think what we have to establish is on both sides is an environment of experiments. Because I don't know what's going to happen. So you test something out. If it's not working out, we bring it back and bring it back to zero, instead of defining before we start running how the outcome of the race is going to look like. I think that's kind of a different mentality as we had it in the past, trying to run controlled experiments.
Environment of experiments, that's a nice lead-in into Catharina, innosabi. Catharina, you talked about, it's about speed. You know, and it sounds great because we all want to have, all the big players want to have a startup, an accelerator, want to be in the new. But then you meet the culture of the old. How did that feel on the ground? What is your experience?
Yeah, you're describing it quite well, actually. There are an increasing number of amounts of individuals who are enthusiastic and who bring a certain type of speed and creativity and new kind of thinking into organizations, but they're very often faced with processes that are just designed for a longer time frame than what's actually possible. And for example, just to give you a very hands-on example, one of our customers comes from the energy industry. And there you have people who have a history of making decisions when it comes to building energy plants. And of course, if you build an energy plant for an enormous amount of money, you don't want to make any single mistake, you know, because that could not only cost you your job, but your whole career. So you better make sure that, you know, every decision is the right one, and it's okay to take it a little longer if you need to. But if that same person now has to design a smart home app, for example, or a digital product in the space of energy, and takes the same kind of mindset and, you know, taking the same security and decisions and taking the same time, that's just not going to work. And that's basically the mindset you talked about. We need a mindset of quicker decisions, of experimenting, of a failure culture that is just incorporated in just the normal process of developing new products.
You know, I think the stories we're hearing is to some extent, technology is huge and it's coming like a train down the tracks, and you can't stop it. And basically, changing the organization is much slower. And what comes to mind is actually what are the best practices and experiences one can share to really accelerate actually the people side. And I think we had it from, again, let me quote Philip Justus again from Google. He started his presentation with people first, and I truly believe actually, if we are capable as industry to take the people with us, as you said, the co-determination, if we can take the people with us, we will be actually so much better off. Kate, in GE, and Christian mentioned it, you know, it's a difficult thing for Deutsche Telekom. At GE, if you read The Second Machine Age or books like, and the research done by Frey and Osborne in Oxford Martin School, you know, they always paint a scenario where millions and millions of jobs are lost. And quite frankly, but then you start digging into, it's not really true. We saw that the study at the World Economic Forum, actually, one guy translated, there was a big headline, 5 million jobs are lost across 50 nations. Translate that into unemployment, it was 0.3%. So individual companies may lose jobs, they go out of business anyway. But it seems like taking the people on the journey, retraining them, is probably, and giving them new skills, is probably really what companies need to do in the future. And how you're doing that, how you're getting your own people into the new, and how you get your own customer into the new.
So that's a great question. So it's hard, and a lot of what all of my peers here on the stage have said is true. I think there's a lot of magic in the pilot or the test or the experiment. And certainly from our cultural perspective, GE is a winning culture. We've been successful for 137 years. And basically, when we see a win, we like to replicate it throughout all of our businesses. So we've definitely been experimenting and testing and piloting in digital by bringing in people who really know digital, having them show us the art of the possible, and then having that, you know, sort of catch like a virus. Now that can't necessarily push up against some of this massive disruption that we're talking about on the shop floor, for example. It's, you know, it's not, you can't leverage the success virus for everything. But when you look at the economic forum and the numbers game, I think we focus on the loss. And if you think at a company level or a factory level or one particular segment, there is a massive shift, right? And there's going to be pain and there's going to be job loss. But when you click up a couple of levels and you look at it at the macro level, there's job creation through innovation. Companies are compelled to innovate with digital. They call it digital Darwinism. The fear of being one of the Fortune 500 that's not here anymore makes you really focus on creating new products and new markets where you can drive value with digital. That's probably driven from the top. And what happens at the worker level, there's one of two things. Number one, you get retrained to be a part of that new world, or, heaven forbid, you might be left behind. And on the second level, you are part of the innovation, and you think about what new products or new value you can create for customers with digital. And I think it all boils down to one simple thing. It's digital DNA. Are we getting the right people into the company who recognize this? And then are the sort of, I'll call it legacy industrial employees, are they thinking about it the right way? Are they getting on the innovation train, or are they being left behind? And their flexibility and their agility and their open-mindedness and ability to collaborate will determine, in fact, whether or not they'll be a part of the future or not.
Christian, how can you do that at a big company which has some civil servants in the root of the history of the company? You know, how can you engage the individual? I think what you say is, actually everybody will have an opportunity. He needs to engage, he needs to participate, but not everybody is waking up to the call. So Christian, any observations how you create that engagement of the people on the ground?
As Philip said, when it comes to digitalization, we're early in the journey. We're also early in the journey of transformation. But what we've done is actually we articulated everyone can be part of the solution, independent how old he or she is, independent from where he or she is coming. So we as a company offer everyone an opportunity. What we can't decide is, as you say in the US, you can't bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, whether one wants to participate, because we have a chunk of people who don't want to engage in this. Okay, that's fine. That have a different end for you as an individual. And the third thing which we can influence, whether you're going to make it, right? So the requalification, you as an employer, you have to offer to everyone, so everyone feels kind of the opportunity to drive that exercise. Because I want to come back to that numbers game. I think the numbers game doesn't get us anywhere. Nobody can prove what is the net effect of digitization. What is actually right is embrace it early on when it comes to automation and opportunities, because the more you embrace it, the better you are off as a company. And I think this is the way how I would approach it, and this is the way I think you should establish an environment in an organization that people really see this as an opportunity. Even automation, even if this has a direct impact on my employability, there's an alternative in the company which has been offered to me, and I will decide whether I will make it there or not.
What can you, just to bring examples, what can you do? Is that massive open online courses everybody can register? Are there training workshops you can go to? Or how does it work?
For example, we have a MOOC currently running. We have a central organization who's training design thinking, and they're completely overbooked. Because once you pass that experience, we have groups of people training agile development. We're opening up to third-party environments. You mentioned the partnering aspects. So we're open up as a company, because what we've learned is we will only be a small part of the total solution. And we can't innovate everything by ourselves. And that is kind of a mindset change for Deutsche Telekom, because we were a fairly captive organization and we wanted to do everything by ourselves. Even when it comes to 5G, there's a consortia, a worldwide consortia, dealing now with the standardization and defining the standard for this technology. I think that's the way on how we do this. Do we have kind of the holy grail formula being resolved? No, not
so
yet.
Basically saying a lot of little things, trying out, and once they're good, they're overbooked, then you know you have to do more of. Are other people engaging? Like, any observation already?
Look, I think it's still a very executive-driven discussion. I think we haven't touched the front line yet. If you go to a customer service agent and talk about digitization, he will talk about call resolution time or something like this, but not digitization. And I think the key question is, how do you really get down to the front line? Yeah. That's the key question. And I would say we're still dealing with the tip of the iceberg of the organization. Let's say the 2,000 top executives are working on these topics. Did we touch the other 200,000? No, not yet.
So down to the front line.
Yeah.
That is something we have to think through as industry. How do you start to understand the tools, but now you need to somehow make it accessible to the broad masses.
If I may so, and we had kind of a nerd camp in our call center organization.
Like that one, nerd camp.
And they did design thinking, and they came up with some and that was bottom-up innovation. Somebody has talked about this bottom-up innovation process. They came up with some very pragmatic, easy-to-implement solutions. None of the executives ever figured out that you can do that. Yeah. And I think this is kind of how you have to engage with that front line, because these people know the business in the day-to-day environment much better than you or I will ever know it.
I think that's really important, is domain and context is so important. So you think that about job elimination, but the reality is through design thinking. Design thinking is awesome, but you have to have an expert in the room.
Right.
And that's the opportunity for these people who are making the shift, is to insert their domain into the new world.
I actually think that we will see probably radical transformation of training itself. The location where the training will be needs to be at the front line. I think that's rather shipping the people to other places and set them in the school benches. And then you can think through how digital works. But I pick up on the nerd camp. Katharina, are you running a nerd camp? You know, you are.
Well, our company is a nerd camp. And I'm proud of it.
You know, you come in with a rather young team to very established organizations, R&D organizations, and they expect you to teach them new tricks. You know, and probably you need to be a little bit nerdy in order to get through the thick skin. What are your experiences in that? How out of the box do you need to be, or can you be, to be successful at the end? Business outcomes.
Well, in terms of, if you refer to our team, I do see that we have to find this fine balance, you know, of being professional, trustworthy, and kind of compatible to the large organizations, and then again, you know, nerdy, young, and digital, so that they actually believe we know what we do. But coming back to working with the whole organization, especially in innovation topics, you know, like you talked about in digitalization, for us, that has, for example, been the reason we developed our mobile app for our technology, because some of our clients noticed that had the exact same goal, you know, involving especially people on the shop floor in the creation of new products and services, and even in solving business challenges or technical challenges, not only the actual development process, but, you know, of course, they couldn't reach them just from the general browser application, you know, because those people are not working in front of a computer all day long. So we developed a mobile app to kind of give, especially the factory worker, the opportunity to work on new innovation projects. And I think these kind of approaches are important to make innovation in digital space successful. And it also means, and then we're coming back to kind of the very early discussion we had on you know, using gamification ideas, is that I believe innovation efforts have to be fun. You know, people have to want to participate, especially on the front lines. You know, they have to be wanting to be part of that exciting creation of the future of the company, and wanting to bring in their knowledge that you might not even know of, you know, and that's especially when you talk about skills of 230,000 people. They are probably not only business-related skills, you know, but people have passions that you want to tap into for your innovation process. So I believe innovation and the tools for it have to be, let's say, like a cool tech blog, like a page you would visit for fun, and maybe you even feel a little embarrassed that you're doing it during your work because it's so much fun. But at the same time, you know, that's an essential part of the innovation process, is making it accessible for everybody and making it fun to work on.
It seemed there's a notion, actually, if you really think about big company transformation, there's a bottom-up notion, which hasn't existed in the old world of transformation. We just heard that, you know, you inject catalyst at the bottom, And I coming back to you, Rodney, you said at the end of the day, no training. You just get the machine, you get the intelligent, you get the brilliant machine, no training. And do you see that basically, no training, maybe with very low-skilled shop floor workers, can they kind of come up with own ideas, create innovation? How big can that become?
Yeah, so I view it that in manufacturing, you have both legacy equipment and legacy workers.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore either of them because they're big assets. So legacy equipment, how do you take an existing machine which was not digital and add enough digital so that it becomes part of the system? And then legacy workers, there's two components of that. There's the older workers who haven't dealt with machines before, or so you need to have the machines, the add-ons to existing machines with new machines. You really have to concentrate on the UX, the user experience, and the user interaction. So at my company, we have a much bigger team worrying about UX than we do about mechanical engineering or electrical engineering or controls. The UX is what's important, and that's to let the people who are there figure out how to use the machine, because if we have to take them off and train them, many companies, that's just not plausible. It has to be something that...
So it has to be at the front line.
It has to be
it
right
needs
where
to happen
they do
right
it.
there.
Yeah, because the small companies can't afford to have their people go off and do something, and the big companies don't want to, because they're trying to produce real product. They got to keep that engine running. They can't disrupt it by saying we're going to change things.
And then maybe a difficult question, but any observations when you go to a shop floor, how many of the people on an average shop floor, and I don't know if that question can be answered, but how many people can do the journey, and how many people say, this is not my world, I'm out?
We see both. We do
Any
see both.
ratios?
I can't give a good statistic, but what we see in very small companies is 1 or 2 people become the leaders. And they were just ordinary workers before, but they get excited and they become the leaders and become the go-to experts. In larger companies, because of liability issues, etc., we often see management wanting to isolate and keep the isolation of the shop floor workers away from the innovation. And no, that system doesn't have a... We need passwords.
Will,
we need
will they be around
authentication.
in a while, these companies?
That's something to worry about. And if they maintain a work environment which for the younger people is so different from what they're used to outside. In their ordinary everyday life, they're dealing with interaction, dealing with having control. Oh, come into my factory and you get no control and you're treated like you have no identity or no capability. That's why one of the reasons we're seeing the workforce aging in manufacturing. So I think they have to change in order to attract new people.
And if you look at the pipeline of new stuff coming around your robots, let's picture your robot in 10 years from now. What can that robot do if your dreams come true? How good will they become?
I don't think they'll become as good as some of the press fears. I think, anything that's going to be deployable on a factory floor in 10 years from now sort of has to be already in research labs. It's not that fast for these technologies. So we're not going to have dexterous hands on our robots in 10 years. Dexterity is still going to be the province of the human. Yeah. But we are going to have them being able to adapt to changing environments much better, much better at computer vision than we have today, because machine learning is moving very quickly in the machine vision state. So they'll be much more aware of their surroundings and much more able to work in an environment where not everything is controlled. So it's not going to be the science fiction movie robots, but they're going to be much more capable.
Will the robots be a friend?
Will they be?
Will they be a friend?
There's a bunch of little companies starting up that have, and many of them my former students have started those. I don't think all of those companies can survive. In my experience with robots, people have befriended robots in ways that I didn't expect. So, in one of my previous companies, iRobot, some people love their Roombas. You can buy clothes for your Roombas. In robots that we had in Afghanistan and Iraq doing roadside bomb detection, the bomb techs came to love their robots so much that if a robot was damaged, they wanted that robot repaired. It's not repairable. We'll give you a new one. No, this is Scooby. This is my buddy. And this is from hardened veterans. So people do bond with robots more than I understand why they do. So, but there is an aspect of that. But I don't think for elder care, for instance, I don't quite follow the Japanese notion that elder care robots are going to be companions. I think elder care robots are about giving people dignity and independence. So I view an S-Class Mercedes as an elder care robot because it lets people
I like to have one.
It lets people drive longer and have their independence longer than they would without those capabilities. So that's where I see robots providing people independence, control, and dignity.
Yeah, excellent. Eric, last question to you before we open up to the audience for questions. When you hear all of this, what are the next startups you should be setting up? Where's the opportunity here?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question because if I would have a definite answer to that, I would start this startup on my own. So this is pretty hard. So the question is also how we can bring startup and startup ideas into reality. And I think if I summarize some of the ideas which were addressed right now, it has something to do with value itself. So the technology and also the digital technologies have to bring some value, not only for the corporation and for the top level management, but also for the frontline users of the technology. So I probably only buy some clothes for my robot if it really provides some additional value. And it might not be a good idea just to address one person and or one target group in a company where a specific technology might provide value, but you have to bring it through the hierarchy. So you need the top management, it needs to provide some value for them, maybe for the controller, for the user, and for all the different target groups inside the company. And what we realized with our startups, it's quite hard. So you have to be very strong in the negotiation and to be well prepared what really is the value of your startup and your technology for the whole organization and the individuals themselves.
I had a wish. If I had a robot which allows me to do 3 things in parallel, I'd take that one. But you know what? Going to the audience, we have a few minutes left. Do we have a microphone here? We have such a broad experience on the future of work in all dimensions. So what are your questions? Over there. Can you just introduce yourself, name and company?
Hi, yes, sure. Thank you very much for coming here. My name is Julian Ray. I'm part of Genpact, an ex-GE company. Yeah. And I had a question for Rodney, Christian, and Kate, because I heard a common thread. So you were mentioning that legacy infrastructure and equipment is still key to a production environment. You, Christian, you were saying that a lot of the people who actually deliver the services at Deutsche Telekom will still be key to your company. And you, Kate, were saying that domain is really important. So it's the kind of it's the knowledge in the heads of the people that you're talking about, right? So Genpact, my company, is a services company, but it's investing the majority of its resources into the digital space. So you need to have those, let's say, in the services space, in the operations, you need to have those efficiency people. But when it comes to the variability, the innovation, you need a different kind of person, a different kind of skill set. So how do you handle the tension that you run this large operation that delivers services or products, and you depend on it, but at the same time, the growth will only come from those new hires who are probably younger, probably higher educated, and have a very different mindset, which is not about maximizing efficiency, but maximizing innovation.
Rodney, you want to take that?
No, not yet. It was a complex question. I'm still computing.
I'll throw some thoughts on the table to get the party started, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So look, we want to be a digital industrial company, and right now I would describe us as a digital and industrial company. And we want to take the and out and be digital industrial. And we are, formulating the strategy to do exactly that. And the first step was bringing in the talent. We've hired thousands of people with digital backgrounds. I came from Oracle prior to GE. Prior to that, I was in Red Hat. I was a CIO at a bank. I'm considered one of the digitals, which is kind of funny because my children would not describe me as a digital person. However, I've been in this space for a long time, and I'm one of the people that's supposed to help lead the transformation. And the reality is I can't take somebody who's been in the industrial world for 30 years and snap my fingers, and I can give them an iWatch, and I can teach them how to use Snapchat, but that's not what we need. What we need is for them to think about how digital can actually change what they do. And that's actually a really hard sort of cultural gap to bridge. And so what we're doing, the way that we do it right now, is we created GE Digital. We've got 4,000 employees who are dedicated to digital, 15,000 embedded in the businesses, and we work in an overlay fashion. We support the businesses side by side, which, by the way, is probably not the end state, right? We want the end state to be probably more efficient than that. But this is the bridge that we're kind of going across, is to share, the digital knowledge and the industrial knowledge, because we need both. And so right now we have both side by side. Over time you'll see the union of the two. Lots of communication, lots of training, lots of hiring, and frankly lots of consternation internally to get to that steady state.
Yeah. I would offer two answers to this. The easier one is kind of what I call the spin-out process. So you have a digital idea, you make it a business model, and you keep it separate alongside the other part of the organization. The more important stuff is the spin-in process. So how do you get that digital innovation embedded into your existing infrastructure? And I think this is where it becomes very much down to leadership. This is why I'm looking for ambidextrous leaders who basically think green and blue at the same time, because the natural reflex of the legacy organization is kind of, no, we don't need this. This is, we've done it 20 years this way, and we want to continue to do it this way, and this is why you need that kind of leadership. This is the important part, and I think that's going to be the make it or break point whenever it comes to spin-in.
So we've spun out, and now we're trying to spin in, exactly like you've said, and it is about leadership.
Let me bring together, I'm mindful of the time, but I think what we heard today in a very high level, digital transformation, it's real, it's coming, it's affecting all the industries. We have to take our people with us. We are best advised starting with Catalyst, we're starting with new spaces, with co-creation. Let it be accelerating, corporate venturing, startups, all the people who are nerds, who are fast to bring new ideas. And once we understand where the direction is, and I really like your chart, Christian, you have to make it the new norm. And Kate, what you just explained is you started to make this not an and thing. You say we're going to be a digital manufacturer, not digital and manufacturing. I think cutting out that journey and having the people in the middle of that, I think that can be a winning recipe.
For sure.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for having you. A big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.